First of all, could you introduce yourselves to people who might be watching?
I'm Claire Webb. I'm a mediator with Mediation Now. I'm also an arbitrator and a collaborative lawyer.
I'm Debbie Bulmer. I do the legal arm of Mediation Now, so Family Solutions Now, which is generally all of the legal issues, including collaborative law, traditional court work, when things perhaps can't be resolved at mediation or indeed need formalising after mediation.
So the topic we're going to talk about for the moment is Christmas. Now, Claire, can I start with you? Well, if a couple is either separating or has just separated, this could be their first Christmas parenting, but individually, I suppose. What kind of issues are you dealing with at this time of the year?
Christmas is always difficult, isn't it? It's difficult even if you're in a perfect world, let alone if you're separating or anything else. So I think all the things that we all worry about are at the forefront of everybody's mind anyway. Add to that the fact that your communication might not be as good as it should be or as good as it is in the past. Give the fact that often if you're trying to live in two separate houses, money's a bit tighter. You've got all of those worries. So, the best thing is that communication. If you can talk to each other and agree how you're going to get through Christmas and how you're going to spend time with the children and things like that, then that's always better. I remember years and years ago when I very first started, someone told me that when you do contact arrangements, you're giving someone the ability to see their child. And I think as I've got older, I've realized that that's absolute nonsense. What you're actually doing is taking away that person's child for a period of time, because neither of them are going to have all the time that they want because they've got to share it. So actually, you always feel a sense of loss, as well as the fact that you're pleased that you've got some arrangements in place. So I just think that, just be aware, and for people to be aware that they will both feel a sense of loss to a degree.
So if a couple are trying to talk to each other, let's forget about an outside person for the moment, what tips would you give them to do their best to talk to each other?
I always used to say, go somewhere neutral, go and get a coffee and sit somewhere because you're less likely to argue in public. But of course, we're not allowed to do that at the moment. So maybe not. But it's the same principle. Try and find somewhere where the children can't hear you, where you can talk, where you're calm. Don't do it when you're feeling a little bit angry or irritated with each other. Try and find a time that is a good time to do it. We have a card called HALT, which says, don't do it when you're hungry, angry, lonely or tired. And apart from the fact that I always think that probably rules out me ever having a conversation, that's a really good tip, in the fact that if you are any of those things, it won't come out properly. Also, it's better if you can warn somebody of what you want to talk to them about, so that they don't get caught on the back foot. There's nothing worse, we've all had it, where you suddenly think, oh my goodness, I wish I'd known, because I wanted to say X, Y, and Z. And then you remember that at about 2:30 in the morning or something. So if you can have warning and you know what's coming, then you can think about what your answers will be as well. So it will be a better communication.
So, Debbie, moving over to the legal side of couples who separate, is Christmas a red flag? Do people keep it together for Christmas? What are you busy working on at the moment?
It's not quite Christmas yet. So normally, I would say most years we've had a few inquiries by about now, but it's been a little bit quieter on the Christmas front. And I actually think it's probably because a lot of people don't know what Christmas looks like at the moment, because we're all waiting to come out of this lockdown 2.0, and we don't know exactly what Christmas means. Does it mean you can have 6 people? Is it your own household? Is it 2 households? I think people are holding off planning. So slightly concerned there might be a rush come the 2nd of December, when we know what it looks like and what you can achieve, when people are trying to make that fit with their own arrangements. There are a few that have been organised. There's a few that are trying to split things. But it's hard, as Claire said, it's hard every year. And this year has just added a complete new different dimension, which has made something that's very difficult almost impossible right now.
Yes, Claire, when it comes to mediation, I've been thinking about the work you do in the context of coronavirus, very much the issues that Debbie just brought up. I mean, there are things like, suppose one parent is living with a vulnerable parent or someone who has to take coronavirus very seriously, and they're worried that the other half of the couple is not as attentive to the rules and the restrictions. Have you any advice or any experience of dealing with those issues at the moment?
I think lots of people are finding that, because lots of households have that situation. Often what happens as well is, when you're first separated, one of you goes and lives back with your parents, and stereotypically those parents tend to be falling into that category of the vulnerable over 70s. So you've got all of those issues. All you can do is, everyone is different, and everybody needs to look at their own circumstances and look at what is best for them and their family. And they are still a family, even though they're separated. So the guidance from the government is that children can go between those two households, two separated households, to see both parents. But you've just got to be sensible, you've got to be realistic. And again, it's back to communication, I'm afraid. You know, you've got to talk about it and work out what's right for you as a family, to keep everyone as safe as you possibly can.
I've tried to meet with my partner outside in a park at 2 meters distance and talk everything through. It's not happening. We can't communicate properly. What does someone such as yourself add to that situation?
Often when you realise that your conversations between yourselves become circular, and people do, it's a rehearsed pattern that we all have with people we know really well, and you fall into the old traps, and you know what buttons to push, and therefore you get reactions, and therefore you don't resolve things. And the benefit of a mediator is somebody independent who's in the room, who's there. It breaks that pattern for a start, but also we've got loads of experience of those kinds of situations. So it doesn't mean we're right when we suggest something, but we can put different ideas out there. We can say, have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? And sometimes, if nothing else, both of them say, goodness, no, we don't want to do that. And it unifies you, because you both think the mediator's mad. So, you know, at least then you have that unity again, and you can move forward. But it just is allowing you to explore options, checking things out, making sure that things feel okay for you both. And also the other benefit of mediation is you both get a chance to be heard. So even if you don't necessarily agree with each other, it is a forum which enables you to say what's worrying you.
Debbie, if I have decided, and maybe my partner has said that's a good idea as well, to divorce, what should my expectations be if I start divorce proceedings at this time of year?
So ordinarily, the pattern and the process has been completely turned upside down by the fact that normal paper exercises are all being converted online. So the courts are going through a complete learning curve, like we all are at the moment. So things, bizarrely enough, although according to the government website, things take longer because of COVID, in my experience, they're actually being a bit quicker at the moment. So there's no delay with the postal system. It's almost like a portal system. And I think people are feeling a lot more in control of it. A lot more people feel able to start the divorce process themselves and seek help for the more complex issues, such as issues over children or finances. So it's actually opened up a few things. There's certainly been some positive things that's come out of this as far as the court process is concerned.
And Debbie, once again, has given brilliant lead to the next question I have for Claire. So thank you for that, Debbie. Christmas is very much about children. So I'd really like your take on how parents, whether they are established separately and maybe have new partners, or whether they're just learning how to have a Christmas apart, how do you deal with children? What should you take into consideration that the children are feeling at this time of year?
Goodness, there is so much, isn't there? And I think people have so much to take on board. But listen to your children. Listen to them. It doesn't mean they should have their own way. So if they say they want to watch YouTube until midnight, the answer is probably still no. But listen to them, enable them to have a say in what's going to happen. Some children really like splitting Christmas Day in half and seeing both parents. Often that works with younger children really well. Older children often find that really irritating because they haven't got up until 11 o'clock. And therefore, if you're moving them at 12, they've hardly managed to sort of function by then. So, everybody's different, but you know your children, you know what they want, you know what they need. try and involve them. Remember, you're still the parents. You always have been. You know, that doesn't change because you separated. You should be co-parenting. Most children want to be involved and see both parents. Some don't, and you know, that needs to be considered as well. But most children would like to see both the parents, and most children want their presence.
Now that's very interesting. You should mention presents. How do you deal with presents? Do you manage to coach parents to share lists, or not try and outdo each other, or consult with each other, or do joint gifts maybe? I don't know.
I think that's really important. And I think children know there's nothing worse for a child to hear one parent say, so and so can afford loads and I can't, and that makes the child feel guilty and be involved in adult discussions. So if you can share lists, that's fantastic. If you can buy together, if it's something more expensive, then do a joint present. You know, keep your boundaries. I often think when people separate, so when we're together, we often have a limit that we all know that we won't spend more than. And, you know, that is different for everybody, but there will normally be a view of we don't spend more than X on our child for Christmas. And then when it comes to separation, it goes out the window a little bit. And it's just remembering those core values. You haven't changed. So why do you want to spend 6 times the amount than you have done any other year? And it's normally because of us, in the fact that we feel guilty. You know, it's just being sensible and, you know, use some of the tools. One of the things I love about the fact that we've all gone into lockdown and things is we found out how to do things differently. And so one of the things, and Debbie and I were talking about it the other day, just on a personal front, is certain retail organizations now do wish lists, and you can share them. So you can stick on there and you can get your children to do it. And then you can say to people, can you please ask for it to be delivered? Because we may not see you. So, you know, use the stuff we've learned in lockdown. It's really, you know, as Debbie said, we've learned stuff professionally. I think we've learned stuff emotionally and at home, and things that, you know, we can all do better. So use those things to make your life easier.
And so just to wrap up the topic of Christmas, Debbie, I know I want a divorce. What should I be doing, thinking? What would your advice be?
I think regardless of where we are in the world and everything else like that at the moment, the advice is no different, which is take your time, never rush a decision. It's always harder at this time of year anyway, and I think there's an awful lot of people under a lot of different pressures at the moment, be it financial, be it not seeing family members, feeling lonely, sad. There's lots of things, and it's really easy to rush into a decision or to think that you're unhappy because of your marriage when it might be something completely different. So just take your time. If you are absolutely sure, get some early advice. It's always worth having a half-hour initial consultation. We do one free, just to talk over what your options are and to look at what a divorce might look like for you, because it's very different for everybody. Once you've had that advice then and been signposted perhaps to mediation or to think some more, or being told what the options are, you can then make a decision, but at least it's a considered decision.
And finally, Claire, I have new issues I want to raise with my partner and don't feel I can do it on a one-to-one. How do I go about approaching you, and what is the process?
So you can ring, you can email, whichever is easier, and just contact us. We will do the rest. We will talk you through what you need to do, what information we need, and we will take you all the way through the process. So the first step is, if you are worried about anything, ring or email in. You can get the phone number or the email from our website, which is www.mediation-now.co.uk.